All right, welcome everyone. This is a public meeting of the West Bend School District and School Board Curriculum Committee. It is 4:30 p.m. on March 17th of 2026, and we will start with introductions. My name is Melanie Ergott, School Board Member.
June Kruger, School Board Member.
Kelly Lang, School Board Member.
Kelly Downs, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Tina Van Roo, District Data and Assessment Coordinator.
Adrian Schneider, Program Administrator.
Erin Faust, Curriculum Coordinator.
All right, well, thank you everyone. Our first item up for discussion tonight is the K-12 Physical Education Curriculum Cycle Update, and Kelly Downs will be introducing and getting us started on this one.
We are really excited tonight because we're bringing forth a lot of hard work from about 7 months that these teams have been engaged in the curriculum cycle. So every one of these teams has been involved in some place in the process, and we're going to begin with Phi-Ed, and we are very blessed tonight to have Donnie Matovich and Russell Fell here to present the work that their team has been doing. I just want to reground you in this cycle. Remember, this is the cycle that was passed last year by the board, and it involves these 4 stages. We start with evaluate, where we just look at what do we currently have. And then we move to develop and design, which has 2 possible pathways, whether we're just going to revise units or we're going to go to a resource recommendation. That decision is made by the team based on the results from evaluate. Then we go into the implement phase of whatever that was, revised units or a new resource. And then we come to assess and refine, where we're looking at what we've done and we're making improvements upon it based on what we know now that we've been in it for 3 years. So this is the cycle laid out. And as you look at evaluate, these teams have all been in the evaluate phase, and these steps are what they've been engaging in. So every single team has been assembled with a representative team. They've aligned their district mission, vision, and goals to their own. They've analyzed student data, and stakeholder feedback was not necessarily with all of our teams because that's going to be part of the process in the spring, and we didn't have a spring to do that because the cycle was afterwards, but that will again be put into the cycle. We will be reviewing curriculum alignment and standards. They've engaged in research on their professional development best practices. The industry best practices is only for CTE, so that does not apply to these teams. They've identified their program strengths and gaps and developed a needs assessment based on those. And they've determined their next pathway, and they are here now to present the findings. With that, I would like to take you into the action steps they've been engaged in a little bit more deeply. Again, the overview of this is they're systematically evaluating, and the systematically is the key word there. All of these processes are involving the system to take everybody through the same process so that we have high quality outcomes. And they want to determine the effectiveness, identify strengths and weaknesses, and inform any improvements that they're going to be made. That's the point of this stage. You can see again, these are some of the deliverables the team has engaged in to meet the needs of that list that I just read to you. They've done mission and vision statements. They've developed learning goals of their curriculum program. They've analyzed their data and created a summary. They've examined heat maps of standards and content. And again, heat maps are these large maps that say this standard is taught here and when. And so it's a colorful map that helps us see where gaps are and where our strengths are. They also did a summary of what they think are high impact instructional strategies. And then they did a root cause analysis. Once they looked at these gaps and some of the weaknesses of the program, they went, okay, why? Why is this happening? When they looked at the strengths, why are these happening? And what do we need to keep? So that helped them to develop that needs assessment. And then finally, they developed a narrative. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Russell and Donnie.
Hi, thank you. Donnie Matovich, Jackson Elementary. I've been with the district for 12 years. Throughout those 12 years, I've also taught first period at the high school, freshman. I spent 1 summer teaching middle school Phi-Ed in the summer. Elementary summer school as well for 1 year, and then about 8 years doing in-person summer school as well at the high school. About an hour ago, I was playing hot dog tag and cupcake tag, so with 6-year-olds. So this was a lot just to listen to get started. Different language for sure. And this is Russell.
I'm Russell Toll. This is my third year in the district. I come from 13 years being an elementary FIAD teacher, so I also know what hot dog tag is in the Kewaskum School District. Before that, I was actually back here teaching at Badger for a year, and I also taught 1 year overseas in South Korea at an international school. So I'm excited to be here and kind of share the work that we've been doing for the last year here.
And I know Kelly mentioned the 7 steps that we've been going through in the last 7 months. It has been a massive and an exciting opportunity for the FIAD team. This is something that we needed a lot to do in terms of program. It has been a lot, honestly, to look at all this. We're going to do our best to deliver what we've learned, but do understand this has been a lot for our program, but we're going to do our best to deliver it and make sure you guys can understand it to the highest level to see what's going on and what we're excited to share for the FIAD program. Mission and vision, the big takeaway for the mission and vision, we just want to build an environment that kids have the knowledge, confidence, and skills to play and be active members in the community. I mean, that's all of us, right? Not just here at elementary level, middle school, or high school, but obviously us out right now in the community. Those are basic fundamentals that we're looking for in our mission here in West Bend. And then for the vision, just to make sure that the student is physically literate with the confidence skills to lead a lifetime of healthful activity. Those are pretty simple mission and visions, but it covers a lot of what we're looking for in a FIAD program. And then we listed a bunch of goals. For me, and at the elementary level, middle school, and high school, I think any FIAD program that you talk to, one of the main goals should be to keep our kids safe. And it is a very exciting environment, a lot of movement, spatial awareness. And if the student isn't feeling safe, they're gonna have a hard time learning, especially when those skills might not be there. There might be an environment that is intimidating to them. We might not have the skills. So one of our main missions is to make sure we create a classroom or an environment that feels safe for all the students at all levels. And then the next one, with that safety comes, can we find enjoyment and keep these kids engaged at all levels from elementary to high school. And it gets harder as the student gets older to keep that engagement. And what are we gonna do to challenge our students and keep them engaged as they go from the kindergarten where they're through 5th grade where they're buzzing, and when they come screaming through my door, to high school where we see a little more challenges. Okay.
And I think one thing I would just like to add is maybe a month or so ago, you know, we're going through this process of making some big, evaluating the process and making some big changes. And we kind of found ourselves kind of like coming back to like, what do we really believe in as a program? And like, we needed something to like just drive our focus and our goals. So one thing we did is we created an activity, and it was called FIAD Utopia. So all of us teachers were kind of came together from all the levels, and kind of we put together like what our favorite or best FIAD program would be if like there was no variables. You know, and we kind of build kind of our goals off of that. And like Donnie said, like we want kids to move. We want to be movement centered. We want them to come away from FIAD and have joy. Because if we love something a lot, you're going to be more motivated, right, to continue to move. And we know how important movement is, like not just in our class, but whether they go into the English classroom or the math classroom. Just being more ready to learn. So it's kind of where our goals kind of began, or how we established them.
Good, moving on. So strengths that we pulled from it, we provide a very well-rounded experience for all the students here in West Bend. Specifically at the high school, we have multiple options in terms of electives for the high school students. This is something we did with the program analysis team about 4 years ago. We came together and we said, hey, where's our program at? At the elementary level, we added a K2 fitness. So we had a 3-4 fitness, and K1-2 did not have that third visit. So we added a third visit for our K1 and 2 students at the elementary level. Badger and Silverbrook, we didn't do too many changes at that time. At the high school, though, during that program analysis, we did offer additional courses, from officiating to coaching to athletic training, and some other options. So we offer a ton, especially as they get older, to kind of keep that engagement and that interest. So they have multiple options. They might not just be a team sports or a strength training kind of athlete or student, so they have other options to maybe hopefully spike their interest and enroll in those courses.
And I think one big thing at the high school is we really want students to have choice. Like we just feel like we're trying to teach them not just to be, we want them to go into the real world and understand like what they love and what drives them to stay active. And one thing that I'm really proud about as just our high school is, number one, we got the career-based opportunities for kids, which I think is fantastic. Like, I have kids in my officiating class that can go out and make money this spring, which is fantastic. But I also did like a deeper dive last spring and looked at just different area schools and kind of what their high schools offered. And I can tell you, like, we are offering as much or more than schools around us. So I was really, really proud to kind of see like we're in the right spot. I think now it's just like taking a look and just refining and making those courses the best they can be.
Some other strengths that we noticed building on that is that K through 8, we hit a lot of the standards, the shape standards that we use, and the substandards as well. Good, moving on. Try not to go too quick. So through a lot of these steps, it leads to this needs assessment, right? We pull from all of those practices and our steps, and we go to, all right, what do we need moving forward? 9 through 12, we're looking at enrollment. So we did some enrollment data, and we looked at it, and we can see that a lot of students are enrolling in different offerings, from summer school in person, summer school virtual, and then virtual offerings in general, and then there's a PE waiver that could use some updating as well. So what qualifies as a student that can take the PE waiver? Do we need to reassess it? I don't know how long we've looked at that, or the last time we looked at that at the high school level for the PE waiver. And then for instruction and assessment, okay, we just want consistent alignment in terms of practices across the buildings. So if we have 5 elementary sites or 4, each site is relatively doing the same curriculum and developing and designing the same assessments and hitting the same assessments, so that my student at Decorah or Fair Park or Green Tree is getting the same education for the most part at Jackson, and so forth. Right? That goes through the entire program as well, K through 12. Aligning to the standards, again, being consistent with that. And then for high school, elective reconfiguration to address section availability and student interest. So they had a personal fitness course, and Russell, you can probably talk to this a little more.
So yeah, so kind of when we added a few years ago, like the officiating, athletic training, coaching, personal fitness was one class that we kind of
Sunset.
pushed.
Yeah.
Yep, into the back burner of the sunset, we call it, right? And we're noticing that there might be a need for that class to come back. So one thing that we noticed is a gap of, we have some kids that, all kids take Fit for Life as freshmen, so that's kind of like their 9th grade Phi-Ed, and then from there they get to choose their pathway. And one pathway that a lot of, I don't want to say, students that maybe aren't driven to be in the career side, or, are just, maybe your kids that like Phi-Ed just a little less. They would go, most of them take personal or lifetime fitness. That's kind of their next course that they normally choose. And then after that, now we're like, which ones should they take? So we're kind of that gap of like, a lot of them would love personal fitness, like just an opportunity to be active and get some of that movement in. Like a lot of those kids don't love team sports. Like they're not in that competitive realm of wanting that. So we feel like maybe there is a need that we would like to engage in having that course available. And we have some ideas we'll get to later of maybe some possibilities that we can make that work. And then we also kind of took a deeper look at our Fit for Life, our 9th grade. That was kind of our main focus, kind of looking at that course. And we just see some opportunities of growth there, and just kind of revamping a little bit, so it's a course that students can take to really get a good feel of the high school and like help them steer into the pathway that's going to create enjoyment and motivation for them to get the movement that we want them to get. So that'd be a good course, we feel, to really focus on and kind of revise.
And specifically for Fitness for Life, because it is the required course, that we want to make sure, like Russell was saying, that if we can find ways to build their interest and engagement, and hopefully keep them within the in-person Phi-Ed at the high school. So it's a massive opportunity. That's why we want to revision it, to make sure that it's mastered at a level that we're satisfied with, and then we can deliver a curriculum and program that students find enjoyment in, so hopefully they can keep taking it as they move through the program.
Yeah, and our goal is, like, they come in, like, and we give them such a great experience that they want to keep taking in-person learning with us, because we ultimately, that's our goal, is to kind of increase in-person offerings for them.
The next bullet point, it talks about the units of study for 6-8. There is potentially changes that are going to happen, and we're trying to, they have like a everyday Phi-Ed and then every other day Phi-Ed, and they might be mixed as well at the middle school. They're looking at developing more curriculum work that will be specific for 6th grade Phi-Ed, 7th grade Phi-Ed, and then 8th grade Phi-Ed with the transition coming up. And I believe at the middle school, and I could be wrong if someone could correct me, there might be some mixing of grades at maybe the same time or within classes. So we're trying to just say, hey, is this the best way to deliver this? And if it's not, hopefully we can change it to make sure moving forward, if this is the time for change, that we can put in a position that we're confident behind in terms of delivering a program and curriculum that we approve. All right, and then obviously elementary, we're getting 5th grade back. My first year was K through 4, so this would be my first year with 5th grade next year. We want to spend some more time working on that. All right, and this is a continuation, so this is page 2 of the needs assessment. K-5 equipment varies per site. For example, just budget reasons. You know, if Jimmy at Green Tree can offer bowling, but I don't have bowling sets, or cup stacking, or whatever it is, gymnastics, like I have ropes and rings, and McLean has swing and ropes. So there's a little differentiation. We would love it where all sites could get the same curriculum and deliver it with the same equipment, and not just be varied by site. And those are usually the ones outside of our core units that we deliver to our students. So let's say there's 9 core subjects. Each teacher has about 2 to 4 that vary based on equipment and what we prefer to teach and deliver at our sites, and maybe what we're confident with. We would love to have all of that be consistent and have the equipment at all sites for that. And then replacement cycle, obviously with the nature of our position, physical education, there is some larger equipment that we deal with, and if we bring in larger equipment that cost a lot, we need to do a better job of keeping inventory. How are we gonna repair this equipment? When do we need it to be reinvested in? And then have a better idea of long-term, hey, we just bought this in 2025, by 2038, we're going to need to replace this, and we need to have a better scope and sequence of just our budget in terms of our equipment to fit our curriculum. All right, moving on. Third bullet point, maintenance. And with that same equipment, how do we maintain it? And where does that come from, and how do we do it? Is it the teacher's job to maintain it, and so forth? Shared use spaces to maximize student, is this, 912, you want to speak on that?
I'm just going to piggyback kind of on what the second and third bullet point. I think one of the big challenges for us or for me and the high school team, and I'm sure it blends into the other levels, is just having the ability to replace equipment as things wear out, and we got a lot of kids using them, obviously. So we just would love to come up with like that plan that allows us to, like we used to have when we had the PEP grant for Phi-Ed, a ton of cardio equipment, and a lot of that stuff just has worn out, and we were unable to replace it. And we currently don't have a ton of cardio machines at the high school, but the ones that we do are starting to go as well. So, and those are big ticket items, like how do we get to a point where we can replace, and just kind of have that plan that Donnie was talking about. And then as we kind of get into that next phase of looking at what we got, like I said, we have a fantastic structure of Phi-Ed. But now, like, once we start digging into each unit, like, it would be fantastic to have the ability to be innovative and have ways to add different things, like maybe cross-country skiing or bikes or roller skates, or, I mean, the list goes on and on of things that we could do that we just can't because of budgets right now. But just kind of coming up with a plan. So I just kind of want to put eyes on that.
And to go after that, not to cut you off, it's something where if we bring in students at that age, it's a great opportunity to give them many different exploratories to try. We don't know what's going on once they leave the high school and at home. They might not ever touch rollerblades. They might not ever get in the pool. They might not ever do cross-country skiing or whatever it is. So it's just building enough opportunities for these students that when we have them in our hands at the high school, we can, at that age, we can really hit some really cool opportunities that isn't the traditional basketball, which is easy to get and affordable. We gotta expand more and just find more interest and give them more opportunities, and I think that's gonna hit and help them as they leave us at the high school. And maybe they grab one and they run with it as they leave.
Yep.
Are we good here?
Yeah, I guess 912, access to shared use spaces to maximize student experiences. that conversation was really just kind of built around, so we have the pack in the weight room, and athletics also uses the same stuff. Like, how can we share that? So we can meet the needs of our Phi Ed program as well as the needs of our athletic programs. So there's just, I feel like maybe some better communication, a better plan moving forward between the two to kind of move forward. So that's kind of all that was about.
Good, and these are just our recommended action steps to address. We want to stay under a half hour, way over our expected latest bet. Anyways. All right, here we go. So this is just our action steps that we want to take from the needs assessment. Obviously, with fifth grade coming in, we want to review and revise that. 6-8, we're going to redesign based on the changes coming up. 9-12, the elective reconfiguration. We added a bunch. Okay, is it the ones we want to keep? Which ones do we need to sunset? Which ones do we need to bring back? Which ones are going to spike the most interest so we have high enrollment and so forth.
And one of the things that we talked about kind of as a program, kind of for the 9-12 elective reconfiguration, is maybe offering some courses every other year. So for example, when I say kind of the jam that we're getting into is our enrollment's going down, so we have less sections. So if we're only offering team sports 4th hour, and some kid that really likes team sports has a class they have to take 4th hour, they miss out. So maybe just trying to be a little more innovative in terms of, you know, every other year we offer lifetime and then one personal fitness, so we keep that pathway going. So that's just some ideas that we've been kind of tossing out there and trying to figure out what that would look like. And I know Aaron helped us kind of draft up a map of what that could look like, and it seems like that we kind of like it. So, and then I already talked about like adding the personal fitness class, the 9th grade PE, kind of revising our Fit for Life, like making that kind of our soundboard to really drive the rest of our high school program.
And then we talked about equipment cycle as well.
Yep.
With that, we come to the develop and design recommendation. I recommends moving into develop and design based on our work here. It was a quick 7 months, a lot of learning and challenges, and ever-going challenges that we will continue to work on and just go with the flow and hopefully address them to get to the program to a point where we are confident that we can deliver a Phi Ed program that we're proud of and to be an educator here in West Bend for all students. And that, I think, that takes us to questions. I know that was a lot. You guys are great listeners, by the way. So,
All right. Well, thank you so much for that presentation. It seems like a lot of thought has really gone into everything, and I don't really have any questions, but I'm glad to hear the updates on how everything's going. Anyone else?
No comments or questions, but I'm just jealous that my day did not involve hot dog tag.
Oh.
And next time that's played, I'd like the invite
All right.
because that sounds way better than my day.
that's a favorite. You should see Cupcake Day. Yeah. that one's fun.
All right.
You good?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'm going to close out of mine, and that
guys.
takes us to Art then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So the next team that was in Evaluate is our amazing art team. We will be having Michelle Bartel and Talia Bladel present for us. They've been facilitating the work all year long and doing such a marvelous job. So with that, I yield the floor to them.
Thank you. Hello, this is my 12th year in the district, and this is Michelle's 13th year.
13th, yep.
We wanted to ground ourselves, of course, in our mission. So through a rich and inclusive art education, students develop creativity, confidence, and communication skills while exploring diverse artistic experiences. They gain an appreciation for art's role in culture and community, growing into innovative, empathetic problem solvers and lifelong learners. Our department vision, empowering all students through creative exploration and visual literacy in the arts.
So I'm going to go over some of our department goals that we've been working on through this process. And with our students, we want to develop creativity and imagination. build technical skills, develop critical thinking, reflection, and problem-solving skills, foster appreciation and explore cultural and historical context, and promote communication and expression. So these are the goals we really worked towards within our department on developing.
For program strengths, K4, strong intentional overlap of creating standards. We feel that creating is essential, and it's heavy in all of our work. Repetition of elements and principles of art within each unit. K8, students encounter similar concepts and media across multiple grade bands, scaffolding, so it gets a little bit harder, more abstract every time they encounter it. 7-12, AP Art and Design trend right now is that the enrollment has increased annually. It offers a variety of courses that cater to a wide range of students' abilities and interests. Strong emphasis on hands-on studio-based learning, specifically at the 7-8 level where we teach. I am the 3D art teacher. We both teach Art for All. You teach 2D art and also advanced art, which is only available to 8th grade students, and all of our other classes are mixed 7th and 8th grade. And K-12, experienced teaching staff, robust community visibility. If you haven't been to the Community Hub show where we display our district art, I invite you in the month of May because it is pretty spectacular. And we also have, if you go throughout town, I know Dunn Brothers right now, we have a show. Chocolate Factory has shows. City Hall, lots of places in the community.
Library. All right, so I'm going to go over our needs assessment. So through this process, we've been looking at all of our data, and we came across our needs assessment here, and this is what we put together as our team. Enrollment. Our enrollment has been declining as courses become more advanced or specialized. So as you move up, right, enrollment goes down, but kids are getting more advanced and specialized instruction at those upper levels. Our middle school participation rate of 70% exceeds our high school participation rate at 22%. And then our low enrollment outcomes are due to minimal graduation requirements within the fine arts. Currently, the graduation requirement is a half credit and kind of a full encompassing of different electives, not just art. So then there's a little lower enrollment in our art classes. Instruction and assessment, the lack of common vertical agreements on priority standards. So that was one of the things we found that we needed to kind of work on in our K-12 system. The program lacks vertical alignment and common assessments, leading to inconsistent pacing. And then onboarding gaps for students entering from parochial or out-of-district schools. We also found declining enrollment, creating the need for high school course offering revisions, and our curriculum work is ongoing. However, the units of study for 6-8 will be further developed when the schedule is finalized. So we're still working on the 6-8 level. And then last thing in our needs assessment that we discovered was the material access at each of our different levels. It's inconsistent access to resources and materials which prevent the department from delivering a guaranteed and viable curriculum across buildings and grade levels. Budget allocation does not allow us to provide standardized materials and facilities, and inflation has impacted resource purchases.
So our recommended actions to address our needs assessment. Our K-12 art recommends moving into development and design phase, revise for improvement. K-5 will review and revise current units and assessments and scope and sequence to include the addition of grade 5 and ensure alignment at the elementary level. 6-8 will revise to align with elementary. Curriculum work is ongoing. However, units of study for 6-8 will be further developed when we know what's going on in 2 years at Badger. And 9-12 will revise the current scope and sequence to ensure program viability through the impending declining enrollment cliffs. Questions?
All right, questions?
We're more of a stick to the script kind of department. We teach middle schoolers. Brevity is
That's true.
our strong point.
Wouldn't hold them for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I suppose you got to keep it direct with the
Yep.
middle schoolers,
Yep.
right? I don't really have any questions, but it sounds like, I'll go kind of what I said for Fayette. I loved hearing the updates on what you guys are working on, and sounds like you're on it, so.
This has been a really good process for us as a
Yeah.
department. I've been in the district 13 years and you're at 12 years. And throughout the last, especially the 10 years ago, there was a lot of staff change and movement in staffing. And now we have a really solid department. And so this has been really good for us to start this process and kind of move through it together with people that we've been here a long time. We know each other well, so it makes, difficult conversations more comfortable. And I feel like it's been very beneficial for us as a department to analyze and come up with the needs assessment and now, looking forward what we're going to do for our programs.
All right, any other questions or comments? Nope, I'm hearing no. All right, thank you so much.
While the next presenters are coming up, I do want to let you know that the facilitators that you're seeing here today, they have all volunteered to lead their teams, and this has come with a lot of additional work. They meet with our CNI team prior to every single professional development day to walk through, like, what does this next step mean in the process? What deliverables will you be creating? And then they are charged with going back and creating something, and we partner with them as much as we can to create how they're going to bring their team through this. So I just wanted to do a shout out to everybody that you see coming up here because they have put in a lot of extra time. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to our amazing world language facilitators. It is Dawn Abst and Janet Jackson, who've been amazing to work with, and I'm just going to hand the floor to them. And you can just hit
Would you like us to present in Spanish or English? Because we could do either.
Hi, I'm Dawn Apps, and this is my 9th year in the district, but my 20th year teaching primarily Spanish. So I started out teaching FLES, which is foreign language at the elementary level. I taught kindergarten through 5th grade. A couple years in between, I'm also dual licensed, so I've taught K4 and 2nd grade, but then my passion for language just really brought me back to teaching Spanish. Janet, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Janet. I've been with the district ever since college, so it's been 22 years. And I've worked primarily at Badger.
All right, so our department mission is currently under construction, but our vision is to cultivate open-minded, reflective, and well-rounded global citizens who communicate meaningfully in the target language and appreciate the richness of cultural diversity.
So our goals, we really want our students to develop lifelong skills and relationships, to gain, we say open their eyes to the world, understanding cultural customs, expand their worldviews, realizing that there's a world outside of West Bend and Wisconsin, and whether we can take them there physically, because we do offer trips, or if it's just, simulation, immersion, like our goal is to get them to see the whole world. We want to develop their workforce skills in the second language. We all know that employers look for people that can communicate in other languages, and that's a great skill that we can help them develop. To enhance their other linguistic skills in English, it really helps to understand the English language better if you know a second language. And then just to be able to navigate this global society that we're in with confidence and cultural competence is our goal from when they first begin the language all the way through high school.
And I would think it also, I'm just going to add this in here, really develops their, with confidence, their risk-taking skills when they're learning how to speak a language. Because it can be very intimidating a lot of times as they start out. They can be very shy about it, but it really develops that skill of being willing to take risks. So our program strengths are that we still have 3 languages that are offered from level 1 through AP. We have out-of-country trips that we offer to students, which is really a great way for them to practice in real world, in real situations, practice their skills, and really ignites more excitement in their language learning journey. We have experienced teaching staff, and what we teach in the classroom just naturally supports a lot of cross-curricular work. So, think of social studies, geography, like the roots of Spanish is a lot of Latin, so that really helps at the high school when they're taking medical classes with the terminology, things like that.
As well as art, and so much. I was thinking with our out-of-country opportunities, a lot of times this includes homestays, so staying with families, as well as touring. German used to have a exchange program for a while, and they're thinking about bringing that back as well. So there's just so many opportunities to build, like lifelong moments. I didn't love Spanish until I actually lived with a family in Mexico in high school, and then I knew I loved it. And then you don't ever become fluent unless you actually live somewhere. And so, like knowing that that's a bridge to getting to becoming advanced. We can get kids all the way up to intermediate, but to become an advanced speaker, that's the next level, which hopefully our program makes them inspired in college to study abroad.
And we encourage, through part of our program too, we encourage hosting, and we talk about that with our students, and a lot of students do choose to host, and that also is another way to really excite them about learning language. And pen pal letters, some of us do with our students, where they're connecting with other students that are either here or abroad. So we really try to work on building relationships early on across the world.
Okay, so our needs, this screen is a bit longer than the other one, but we, like the other departments, have some enrollment needs. As you can see, at Silverbrook, about 90% of kids take a world language. It is a requirement there. So unless a child is in like an intervention, they would be in a language. At Badger, they get to choose. And about 70% of students stick with it, which is great. The first big cliff comes at the high school, where about 26% are enrolled. And that's from the past 4 years on an average. So some of the reason why we think this happened is that in 4th grade, for the last decade or so, they have to pick a language in 4th grade, kind of without really knowing why they're taking French or German or Spanish. And so without exploring why they're put in that class, maybe they realize it really wasn't for them. And it's kind of hard to start a different language once you've began and, focused on one. So that could be one area that we're hoping that with an exploratory path going forward, they'll make a better decision that's really inspiring for them, so they can stick with their language for longer. We are encouraging, so the colleges in Wisconsin aren't requiring 2 years of world language for the most part. There are some colleges and some private colleges that do, but it used to be where you did need the 2 credits, and then a lot of kids would take it for 2 credits and then drop. And now that's kind of changing in the world around us. So that could be another reason why kids aren't taking it in high school, because they're feeling like it's not a requirement for colleges. So that's part of our struggle with enrollment. As far as instruction and assessment, with having a lower enrollment, once they get to the higher up levels, we've had to combine some classes, especially in German and French, where in one class it might be levels German 2 and 3 together, or French 5 and 6 together. And that does make it difficult to differentiate to all the students in the room at a high level. Also knowing what is the best entry point at high school. So currently, if they take the world language starting in 5th grade, we have them begin at level 3, which we don't believe is the best entry point. We don't believe that kids are mature enough to be able to be at that level. Honestly, 10 years ago when the switch was made, nobody in world language, none of us, we were told that they're going to start in 5th grade, then they're going to be done sooner. And none of us ever said like, wow, level 3 at the high school as a freshman is far too mature for where they're at. And that's made us have to shift our instruction, almost water it down. Like our level 3 is not a true level 3 that you might find in other schools. And as hard as that is to admit, like we need to have a more robust program and have them come to the high school at a level 2, which is what we can provide them and do a great job. And that way they're not making it all the way up to this like level 6 class, which really what is that? You know, our CAP class we feel should be level 5. And like we said earlier, we have a phenomenal staff. Like our teachers are so dedicated and passionate, and we just want to give them high quality instruction at the level that they're at. And so it's a need. Like we need to reevaluate how we're going to do the middle school so that we can have them go to the high school and not all drop out. Like we want them to stay with it because it's something that they're successful in. It's not way too hard for them, and the teachers can feel like they're teaching at that quality level because they're amazing. So as far as materials, our materials for Spanish are, I think, about 15 years old. They're very out of date. It's still the day of the video cassette and the DVD player. As far as vocabulary, software, it's very out of date. German has no resources, so our German teacher's been just creating her own curriculum, which she does amazing at, but she would like resources. And then French, theirs will also soon be no access for them, the digital. So we are all in need of new resources very soon.
All right, so our recommendation is to continue moving into develop and design phase, revise for improvement. Like Janet said, we're in need of updated resources for all languages. German currently has limited resources. I think there was one textbook that they were able to find, but there's only the teacher's edition, so she does not have any resources except for what she creates herself, which is a lot, especially since she's teaching all of the levels herself. The French resource, there's an extension of their digital access through 26-27. And for Spanish, we need updated resources. Like Janet said, everything is very outdated. Curriculum work is ongoing. However, units of study for 6 to 8 will be further developed when the schedule is finalized and we know what is actually going on, what will be available for us at the middle school.
We're really hoping to give the kids a robust experience of here's some German, here's some French, here's some Spanish. Now make your decision, and it's really fun once you have 2 languages down. Learning a 3rd and 4th, it becomes easier and easier. And so how cool would it be that a kid could have a little bit of basics of all? It would be amazing. We're one of the only districts in our whole region that offers 3 languages.
Yeah, and just to springboard off of that, we see it at the high school all the time when students come from Europe and they automatically are learning, they come speaking more than one language. There was a student who came from, I think, maybe Romania, or I'm not sure exactly where she's from, but she came speaking her own language and then English, and she knows a little bit of Italian, and she started in Spanish 1, and we kept moving her. She's now in Spanish 4, and she's ahead of her classmates in how fast she's picking it up. So it really, it's great to, once you can speak a language, you can pick up other languages very easily.
I think we're on to questions.
Yep.
All right, I just wanted to say something just for if any people are watching at home. When you talk about needing updated resources, they might say, oh, well, the language hasn't really changed, but I'm guessing, things like digital resources and stuff like that is really where it's lacking.
And terminology too, when they're talking about things that the kids don't really relate to anymore, and they're talking about CD players and things like that. And even some of the cultural information in those sections of the book are referring to things that are outdated.
Sure.
So updating that.
Okay.
Because the language is always taught in context of something, and it's the context that need to be updated.
Sure.
I really like the idea of exposing the students to all three languages before they select one. Are you envisioning that might happen in like the 5th grade where they get, or at what point would they have exposure to the 3 languages where they can then ultimately select one to master as they get older?
That's a great question. I think the 6th grade, because they'll be at Badger, so for our teaching force, we would be able to hopefully rotate our staff. Whereas 5th grade, it's four different sites. It'd be really hard to get staff to all of those sites. Plus, I know with the 5th grade curriculum having to do so many minutes in math and English, it probably isn't a possibility, but we're hoping for 6th grade to have a really robust chance to do that. Since all of us will be at Badger, we could definitely do that.
Any
All
other
right.
questions?
I'm seeing no more questions.
All right.
So thank you so much for your presentation, and I look forward to hearing what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then our next item is the English Language Arts Curriculum Cycle Update. And Kelly, will you be introducing this
Yes,
one?
I will be. And tonight, we have Christy Fisher with us, who, I'm sorry. I'll start again. Christy Steinhaus with us, who has been one of our facilitators. The other facilitator, Brett Hartman, is home with his newborn baby. So I'm the stand-in. But Adrian's been working closely with his team too, so she also helped to prepare this. So her name is on this as well. And we would love to dive in with English language arts. They're in, I'm going to ground you a little bit in the curriculum cycle to begin. Is this mine?
Yes.
Okay. So again, you've seen this before. They are in develop and design, and that is because a lot of the work that, well, let me back up. When we began that cycle, remember we brought it to you in like May, I think it was. We had to evaluate where all the different teams were. And we also wanted to honor all the work that they had already done up until that point. So we looked through all the resources of things that had been done before. And as we looked at it, we realized that this team had done the work of evaluate already, even though we didn't call it evaluate. They basically did the work. So we honored that work and we put them into develop and design.
Yeah, so this evaluate year, we started the process in 2024. Some of the language is like slightly different, but essentially this is saying that we assembled a representative team, which we did. We aligned with the district mission and vision goals. Our vision that we had come up with as a team is we believe in excellence in literacy is achieved through engaging standards-aligned instruction, collaboration, and responsive high-quality strategies that meet the diverse needs of all learners. So we went through that process. We then went in and looked at our data. So we do have a lot of slides that are kind of taking us through all of that evaluation cycle, since we're now jumping in this year with the board-approved cycle. We did go through all of the data. We looked at our curriculum. We looked at what we're currently doing and what gaps we have. We worked with our teams both as an 8th grade, 9th grade silo, but we also worked together and looked at everything vertically as well. And we identified that there were a lot of gaps. So we'll show all of that. Our team this year, because of the recommendation of looking through and the evaluate, we have a new team. So we have 3 curriculum and instruction representatives, 3 literary specialists, the Silverbrook teachers, Badger teachers, 10. High school teachers, we have 5 of those, and then we also have our site administration from both the high school and at middle school. So these people are so important to the work that we've done this year. We wouldn't be here this far along if it wasn't for the blood, sweat, and tears of everyone on this slide. So we wanted to honor that.
And these people have been meeting outside of our professional development days. So they've had to meet many, many times after school, long hours, and then in addition, doing the PD days.
Yeah. So we have two major assessments in English that we use. We have the Wisconsin Forward exam, which we'll point out, we're looking at our standards and the scores for those, and there was a cut score change that took place between 2023 and 2024, so we'll point that out. And then we also have the ACT as our data from the high school that we'll use. Our first point is the reading standards. So our reading standards, there's 3 areas that the reading standards are broken up into. We have key ideas and details, craft and structure, and integration of knowledge and ideas. So that second block are actually 2 different sections. For key ideas and details, you'll see that the 6th grade increased slightly between the 2023 and 24 year and the following year. English 1 and 2 increased slightly between 2024 and 2025. And then you have English 3 and English Honors 3 remain consistent at 40% proficiency. And one of the things that I think is really important, that was a guiding mark that we started back in 2024, was this idea that universal instruction is sound when proficiency is 80%. So that's always like the guideline that we're keeping in mind. Craft instruction and integration of knowledge and ideas, 6 through 7 showed growth of approximately 2% each, and then English 1 and 2 performance remained steady at approximately 50%. And then we have vocabulary usage, and unfortunately, our scores decreased across all areas, 6 through 8. And the high school vocabulary, they had a vocabulary integrated into their curriculum. What we found is our curriculum that we moved to in the 6 through 8 did not have that vocabulary instruction. And the old work that was done prior to with STEMs, Greek and Latin STEMs, was no longer taught. And so we did see that dip. So this is the key ideas and details. This is the first 3 sections of our reading. And this mark right here this is showing that's where the cut scores changed for the state. So you cannot compare between those 2. You really have to look at 2023 and 2024 to 2024 and 25. And then this is for craft and structure and integration. And as you can see, our numbers are not at 80%. And a lot of them are even below 50. So that was a big marker for us. And this is the vocabulary usage. So 6, 7, and 8, again, not above or at 80. Okay.
So the next area in the standards for ELA is writing and language. And that is measured across these subcategories. We have text types and purpose. There we experienced an average growth of about 5.8% between 23 and 24, 25. And we're using those numbers just because it's hard to compare, like she said, between those cut scores. So we're just kind of averaging those last few years. This was our strongest area, because you can see it through the stronger growth there. Research, we experienced an average growth of 4.3% in that subcategory. And using conventions, we have about 3.9% of growth. And as you can see, I just wanted to make sure you could see the numbers. Here we're getting closer. If you look at 6th grade, we're at 75.4%. We're getting close to that 80% mark. And then we have 7th and 8th grade, again, a little closer than some of our other areas. So for writing and language, you're seeing 2 different charts kind of here. We have the forward on the top, and then this looks, and then we have language and convention on the bottom. I apologize. As we're looking at the research, you can again just see those specific scores. Nice highlight in sixth grade again at 72.9%. And again, for writing and language convention at 71.7%. We'll give you a minute just to kind of take in those numbers. I know there's a lot on this slide. So in the next area, we're looking at the writing and language standards for grades 9 through 11. We just looked at 6 through 8. Again, they're measured across subcategories. There's integration of knowledge, production of writing, knowledge of language, and conventions of standard English. And we have, in English 1 and 2, we grew by 11%, which was a nice celebration. And in English 3, we had a slight decrease of 3%. In production of writing, this is staying relatively stable in English 1 and 2, but it's at 54.2%. In English 3 honors, we saw a slight decrease from 56 to 52 over those 3 years. In knowledge of language, 1 and 2 grew approximately by 5%, from 23 to 25, and English 3 grew approximately 3% in that same time frame. In conventions of standards of English, they only grew by about approximately 1%, which is very, very minimal. But in English 3, unfortunately, declined by 5%. So you can see where our areas of strengths are, as well as areas that we still need to work on. So these, again, are the breakdown of those specific numbers that we shared. I'll give you a minute to take a look. There's integration of knowledge at the top and production of writing at the bottom. You'll see that grayed out area. That's because they were not evaluated in those years. So the next piece of our subcategories are knowledge of language again. These are just the raw data for you to take a closer look. I'll give you another minute.
And the last section is the listening and speaking standards. This listening and speaking are not actually are no longer evaluated anymore in the Wisconsin Forwards, but we do have a little snapshot of that. What we found in the 2022-2023 school year is only provided through then. Prior to that, performance was declining across 6 through 8, with 8th dropping 35%. And then you have your speaking, which are not tested, but here are the numbers for Wisconsin Forward through 6 through 8. The high school did not have that. So you could see we had some dips in that as well. But it is no longer a part of the Wisconsin Forward, although it is still our standards that we need to make sure that our curriculum is integrating. Because as you can see, our curriculums weren't probably touching some of these even to begin with. So it's something that we don't want to forget about. Okay, so ultimately there were pockets of incremental growth. So 6, 9, and 10 saw slight increases in those key ideas and details. 6 through 8 all experienced growth in writing, and all 3 levels of high school knowledge of language grew. But there were declines, and those declines really stood out to us. 6 through 8 experienced a decrease in reading vocabulary usage. All high school English remained the same or declined in the production of writing, and grade 8 saw significant decline in reading craft and structure and integration of knowledge and ideas. So all areas fall short of that 80% mark that we're striving for, which leads us then into where we want to be. So we started looking at these areas. The curriculum currently is different kind of all over the place in terms of like high school versus middle school. Middle school, we had currently Lucy Calkins. But then what we started doing in the evaluation of it is started supplementing and trying to fill some of those gaps, especially with this process in 2024. When we started looking at those gaps, we said, hey, this is where we're needing to fill in. Reading instruction primarily focuses on the reading of literature. What we looked at are standards that we teach in our current curriculum system. We were filled on our first 3 standards, and that's only 1/3 of the standards. So every single time that we looked at the furthering of instruction, when we're thinking about our craft, our integration of knowledge, those were not taught for mastery in any of the grades. And they were always missing. So we hit really heavy, like things like how to identify a main idea or a theme, but we never got into the higher level thinking. So that was something that really stood out to us. Reading informational text also received a lot less emphasis on the reading of literature, and only one of the, and the key ideas and details, I spoke to that. Writing and language, speaking and listening, writing, and these standards addressed inconsistently across all the grades. Sometimes they were hit, sometimes they weren't. Oftentimes it wasn't necessarily to mastery, it was like introduced and then we cycled on to something else and we never came back and made sure that the kids were doing, reaching mastery of that particular standard. Instructional resources do not fully align with the state standards across all the grade levels either. Specifically for 6 through 8, Lucy Calkins she's not standards-based by any means. We had to go in and try to figure out which standards were being addressed and then find the ones that there were a gap that we filled in. The conclusion, the review indicated a need for stronger alignment of curriculum, instruction, and resources that reflect and support ELA standards to ensure consistent student learning across all the grade levels. So that's like the snapshot of what we've done for the last 2 years that has brought us here today to where we are. We did some more program analysis. The strengths related to the standards, we have reading grades 5, 6, 8, and 10 consistently meet grade level expectations. Writing foundation, strong basic writing in 5 through 6, proficiency essay writing in grade 7. Grammar, high proficiency in grade 7 and grade 10, including honors, and then advanced writing, grade 11. Successfully produces high quality organized projects. Our gaps are longer than our strengths. Inconsistent in middle school, limited focus on advanced analysis in the high school. Vocabulary, no dedicated instruction in 5, 6, and 8. Grammar, inconsistent instruction across the middle school and honors courses. Listening, rarely taught or addressed late in the year, if at all. 9th grade, gaps in planning and editing in English 1, and advanced electives missing alignment to required state standards. So we come on to August of 2025. And we started our PD with everybody, not just the curriculum team, but all of the ELA department, and really tried to instruct everybody on the science of reading, building background knowledge, and in particular for the upper strands of the Scarborough's reading rope, the background knowledge, the vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and the literacy knowledge, and how important that is when we're thinking about our resources. We had already determined our resources aren't doing enough, and then this just further solidified it for us because none of our curriculums are making sure to do this quality.
And also a reminder that Act 20 was passed and all of our K-5 has switched to a science of reading program. So those students are starting to move through our system. And we need a resource that's going to create that alignment for our students so we can continue in that. So that is one of the reasons, if you look at what on our steps for evaluate, they need to engage in research and professional development. So we started there with rooting everybody in that science of reading so that this team would also have that knowledge when they develop their own rubric for what needs to be in the next resource.
And so that leads us to the to be column for us is that we needed resources. We needed better resources. What we currently have is not cutting it. The team works through those standards, content, heat maps during the program evaluation that led us here. The team completed the curriculum documents that reflect our current instruction, and these 2 pieces of data will be revised at the conclusion of resource recommendation phase. So when we got together after our instruction with the science of reading, we then spent our time looking at our vision, and we created our rubric. And we spent, that's when the curriculum team together, and we spent September and October just narrowing it down, creating, looking at all of the wordsmithing. It was a process, and we didn't really leave a stone unturned on it. We felt really good about that rubric reflecting our vision as an ELA department. And so then from there, we had a day where we took a look at 25 curriculums. So the screening of the resources, we did this again as the curriculum team. We started with all of these 25 resources, and we used a program called EdReports. EdReports is a national program, and they go in and take a look at and evaluate all aspects of a curriculum, and they give it a score. And so we spent time, we broke it up, and the team got together and looked at all of those and started weeding out. If it wasn't meeting the bare minimum in EdReports, then we didn't want anything to do with it either. After that, then we went through the options that we had. We had 5 options for 6 through 8, 1 option for 9 through 10, and then 5 options through 6 through 10. That from that, we broke it down to those 11. When we sent all of that information out then, these are the programs that actually got back to us. So we have Amplify, Great Minds, ARC, American Reading Company. Common Lit 360 was both middle school and high school, my perspectives and into literature, and there was nothing that was just for high school. So when we went through these then, we used the rubric that we spent so much time on, and we broke down all of these into the process with the rubric that we developed as a team. And what we found, sorry, kind of go back and forth. What we found is after going through the rubric, there were 2 really big standouts for us, and that was my perspectives and into literature. We liked the fact that my perspectives and into literature is also middle school and high school, so that if both of our buildings like it, we could have that vertical alignment from 6 through 10, although we are still in the process of looking at just what's going to be best for each grade level. We ultimately, the other ones had really heavy computer usage, a lot of computer usage, and we just didn't feel like that was a direction that we wanted to go to in our classes. So those 2 really stood out to us. So the team reviewed all the resources, reviewed against the established rubric, and kept the team informed throughout the entire process. So every time that we had PD days, we would let the larger ELA team know what was going on. We narrowed down to the HMH into literature and Savas My Perspectives. And now we've had both of the resources available for everyone to view. For 2 months, we've been looking at it. Each of the literacy specialists also had housed the curriculum books, so anybody at any time can also see the physical copies of the 2 curriculums as well. The vendors came and did a presentation in February 16th, to the larger ELA team. And then we're starting the representatives engaging in the site visits. So we haven't done all of them just yet. We have done Grafton with our middle school, and the high school went to Grafton as well. So we're just looking, that was to look at into literature, and we still need to do my perspectives. The full ELA team engaged in the text selection review of both of the final options as well. We've had them looking through certain aspects of the curriculum so that they can feel comfortable and confident with the choice that the larger or the smaller curriculum team had, asking them questions, looking for their input, not only for the vendor visits, but things that we should be looking for as a priority for us as well as a team. All right, public engagement.
So our next step is to have these resources be available for public viewing. So they'll be made available for public viewing at the West Bend School District here, and then also at the library. We're hoping to start March 18th, which is tomorrow already, and go through April 1st. So this is where we are now, narrowing these choices. We've narrowed to the two, and we need to come up with the RFP. But this is a really key piece of ELA. As you know, with our experience with book clubs and making sure we're honoring the community's choices as well as policy, this is a next step for us, right? So for both of these resources, we know that anything that's produced will probably have some things in it that we've already decided we don't use, right? And that would be honored in whatever we go forward with. So if it's already on a list that we don't use, even though it might be on a book list within this, we wouldn't be using that book. So we're going to stay in alignment with the policy, the administrative rules, and the practice. We do need to review the novels for potential integration with the resources. It's different in both of the resources. There's some selections that we can choose from. Our hope is that these are completely vetted, understood ahead of time, so that going forth, teachers have the freedom to use the resource that's been approved, and that's already been approved ahead of time. We'd like to always, all of the decisions made throughout this have been through the strategy of consensus. So this has never been a majority vote where it can be a slim margin. They've engaged in the process of consensus for every single piece of decision making. Like I know when they made the rubric, I was there when they were making those final decisions of the narrowing to those two. Once that final recommendation comes, once the teams determine what they want to do going forward, then we'll begin the structure of implementation planning. So that's nothing we can do specifically at this time because we don't know what the board will approve, right? We can recommend, but we don't know. But whatever is implemented, there's certain things that need to be done. This process is, again, going to be done by the team. We will be soliciting from the teachers, what do you think you need? And we'll build a program around what that feedback looks like, and we'll have lots of conversations back and forth to refine that into something that works for everybody. So when we did this for math, if you remember, we had that implementation plan. The math team wanted to come in the summer. They wanted 4 days in the summer. They wanted them spaced apart. Those types of things are what has to be created now. Do they want to start some in the spring? How do they want to do it? There's a lot of ways to do it, but none of it's easy. So it really is going to come down to the team making trade-offs. Like, yeah, for the math team, they wanted to come in the summer, right? That was their choice. And that's a bummer, but at the same time, they're like, that mattered to them. So that was their trade-off. So does that kind of make sense? They're going to have to weigh this out and what's important to them. Then we will also complete the request for proposal that will go to both of these final selections so that we can then weigh out costs and what the professional development looks like and all those types of things. And then we'll come back to you with a presentation of that recommended selection. And then hopefully that will go forward to the school board for discussion and any action. So this is the approval process timeline. It should look a little bit familiar to you after what we did with math last year. We are right now on that red dot on 317, right, recommending to move forward for public viewing. And then in this time frame from 318 to 4/1 would be that public viewing and the survey. We will continue to work with the department during this time, though. As Chrissy mentioned, we haven't done site visits for all of it yet. There's a lot more conversation to be had about these resources. We need to do a lot more reviewing of some of these specific things, especially on Friday at our last PD. They were kind of marking things that they thought, let's look deeper into these areas. So we have that collected and we need to do that digging yet. So that's all still going to be in process. We hope by May 5th to be able to bring to you a recommendation from the team as to what they want to do. And then we hope on 5/11 that it would go to the Board of Education, and then again on 5/26, and then we would start purchasing materials on July 1st. Now, middle school's a little further along in this process. High school, we're still in conversations with how they're moving through. But that's this general timeline. The goal of all this, and it's the same goal we have for our materials, we really want to make sure that our primary resources provide all students and teachers. And I just want to really emphasize that. We all want it for our students. But we need our teachers to have a resource that they can be their best and not have to be digging through a curriculum to even find what the standards are and having to supplement. That puts them into creation mode. We want them to be able to use their talents and their skills to the best of their ability as well. That will also build their capacity and allow them to completely focus on instruction with students and responding to those needs. So that's a really important part of this goal, so that they can also achieve at high levels. Thank you so much for your time. I know that was a lot. It's a big process. So at that, I'm just going to open the floor for questions.
Question, you had brought up the book clubs. So existing book clubs that everything is, would those stay or would things change with the new curriculum?
Things will most likely change with the new curriculum. However, we would really love to use a lot of what we currently have and recycle it into the curriculum that they have. They have a lot of books that actually coincide with what's already being used. So that's a big piece. And novels is a sticking point for us. I mean, this is going to be something that we're definitely going to have to navigate through. The curriculums themselves the books are an optional or not necessarily a requirement in terms of like their physical book that they give you. They say that you could integrate. And what we found in the other site visits is that some schools, what the curriculum book has is enough to get through the entire year. So the curriculum teams decided to take a unit out in order to implement a novel study. So it's an additional piece on top of what the physical resource has.
One thing that's really come out, though, is that novels are super important to our team because they know the impact it has on our students to be able to engage in reading an entire piece. So that has come in through loud and clear as a high priority. And like she said, there was a district that reported to us that they chose not to use the novels at all. Well, our team, that's important too. So when we get to that point of implementation, the decisions that Chrissy was just mentioning about, okay, well, if we're going to we want to use a novel, so what does that mean for when we implement this? What does that look like? That's when all those decisions have to get made, and that's where the team will wrestle with those and make those decisions. The one big important part, though, is that we have that guaranteed viable curriculum, right? So what we wouldn't want is every individual teacher making that decision. We have to come together as a team, and they will make that through consensus to go forward.
Thank you for the presentation. While this was a lot to take in, it's hard to stand and think about and present the numbers as they are. And I wanted to acknowledge that the numbers aren't great, and thank you for telling us and really taking in that reflection and trying to figure out ways that we can find tools and resources that will help our students.
Thank you for that. And I really we want everything to be very transparent in this process, right? And again, We have fantastic teachers. We know that. We have hardworking teachers who we want to put in their hands something that makes their jobs easier for them to achieve at those levels. So, and we know we have great kids, right? They can achieve at this. We just need to adjust that resource.
Yeah, and I was going to comment on similar things. I'm glad Kelly brought up the book clubs because that was one thing that I had wondered about. How are we going to have to redo all of that all over again? Or
We really want to recycle what's already there. From the teacher standpoint, for
from
sure.
everybody's standpoint, right?
So we definitely, there's so many resources that they have, and they have novel studies in their curriculum for it.
Okay.
Not necessarily book clubs, though. A lot of it is like 2 suggestions, and so we really have to navigate what that's going to look like as a team. And hopefully we'll be able to just recycle what's already done, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, and then another thing too, just with trying to get to that 80% proficiency, like I'm glad to see that we're kind of looking into this, like why the numbers are what they are, because I know that's kind of been, people have been talking about it for a couple of years now, you know, like since I've even been plugged into this whole school board thing. So, yeah, I'm glad to see we're addressing that, and hopefully we can see some numbers closer to that 80% goal, you know, over time. But thank you so much for all of your hard work, because that really looks like a lot of work. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Chrissy. Yeah, that team has done a lot of work and has engaged at a very high level within this process. So kudos to every member of those teams. Not only the smaller team, but even when the larger team had to come together, there was a lot to do. This is our last item of the night. So this is curriculum cycle recommended modifications. When we came to you in May with this colorful diagram, we had gone through all of the different subject areas and placed them in their phases. And the longer we live with it, the more we're realizing, oh, we need to shift this, we need to shift that, right? So we will be bringing this back every single year to you, because I'm assuming as we continue to live with it, that's the nature of the beast. So we come up with our basic guideline, and then as we go forward, things have to be changed. We did present the changes that I'm going to be bringing to you to our CNI Advisory Committee. We have a committee made up of teachers, coaches, administrators that we've brought things to so that we can get their input on about going forward. And they did give us the okay to bring these changes to you tonight. So there's a link there for you, but I'm just going to kind of try to walk you through this document. The big one that's looming is K-5 math. So on our original cycle, this was not supposed to begin evaluating until 2027-28. One of the main reasons we placed it there was because we were not sure what was going to happen with our 5th grade teachers when they went to the elementary. If they needed to teach all subject areas, that meant that if I was currently an ELA teacher, I needed to be trained in math and in social studies and in science. And the idea of, if I was a math teacher, throwing a new math curriculum on top of that did not seem like a wise thing. So we wanted to avoid that for our teachers. Since then, the decision's been made that these teachers will be specializing, which means that our math teachers are continuing in math. They have had the same curriculum since 2015. Best practice in curriculum cycles is about 7 years. So they would be long overdue for a change. In addition, our elementary math indicates a need to pull this review up. It's not terrible. It isn't at all. It's been kind of a bit stagnant. We have pockets of nice growth, but we haven't been able to kind of push it into that 80% consistently. So that also helps us think, maybe we need to be looking at this resource. The potential state math legislation. Now that's been paused, but for most of this year, there was talk that there was going to be this legislation going through. If we hold off too long, we might not be able to respond to that appropriately. Going into evaluate next year, if anything comes out through that evaluation process, which you've just seen, we will be able to adjust and make sure we're responding appropriately. the other problem is if we don't advance it, we'd have K-12 science and math K-5 in evaluate concurrently, which means they'd be implementing concurrently, super difficult on elementary teachers. And not only that, but the budget impact would be a problem. So since we've adjusted that, that would be a problem. So all of that, we'd like to advance them to the evaluate stage starting in 2026 to 27. For secondary math, we're really just kind of cleaning up the document. When we originally made this, we had Math 612. As we got into the process, the 610 team was our core, and that was such a heavy lift. We're like, you know what, we think the electives kind of have to live separately because it's the same teachers who would be involved in both processes. And as you can see, it's a robust process. So we want to separate those out. The other thing that's not reflected in our current cycle is Algebra 2. Although we have the resources for them, we have teachers who are teaching Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, or Geometry and Algebra 2. To implement 2 new curriculums is a heavy lift. So we held Algebra 2. That's being implemented this coming school year. So we just wanted to make sure that was reflected on the curriculum cycle as well. We'd also like to kind of stagger these math electives away from that math core content, as I said, because we'd have those same teachers doing too many things evaluating. It's just too much. When you move down to K-12 art, music, and Phi Ed, we know that 5th grade is already beginning implementation this coming school year. So we wanted to reflect that in our cycle so that that rejoining, they have to revise their units as you heard them speak to tonight, and that will be that implementation that has to be reflected in the new one. All of those teams are continuing in develop and design. We originally had thought they could do possibly the 2 in the 1 year. The reason for that was when we started this, we did not know, are they going to do a new schedule for 6th grade once 5th grade moves? Or were we waiting for Badger? And we thought, better to be ready. And if not, we're set to go. So we've learned that that's going to be further off, so we can stay with where we are. So they're going to just continue and develop and design and do a really deep dive into that. For 712 science, we had moved them to, we want to add them to assess and refine in year 1. We had reflected on our cycle that they started and evaluate the following year, but we just want to make sure we're reflecting that they actually are in year 1 this year, and then they will go on to year 2, so we want to make sure we have that. The 5th grade is going to maintain their current resources. They're not really part of this piece, and then once they, when this science team gets to evaluate, the team will come together as a whole. So that will be reflected. And then we just want to add this general disclaimer, which is this is a living document for the curriculum cycle. And it may be updated as content areas, instructional priorities, and pacing are revised. Notifications of any changes will be provided to the curriculum committee as appropriate. So as we come through any other changes, as we have to adjust, we'll be bringing those changes to you. And then once a year, when we bring all the standards, we'll also bring the updated curriculum cycle for you to see, oh, this is what we're currently looking at this year. On the bottom, we have these areas that kind of operate with the curriculum cycle framework, which was really fantastic, actually, because when we started, one of our goals is to make sure student services and CNI are working more hand in hand. And once we developed this cycle, they're like, we want to be part of this as well. We want to use that framework to evaluate our resources. So we want to add them to that cycle. We have intervention, reading and math. We had them listed on there because they had done a few things, but we want to remove them from that 7-year cycle in order to be more responsive to needs. So because we're dealing with intervention, which is a little more need responsive in a very, very timely manner, we wanted to be able to do that. And then we have advanced placement courses. They have a whole different cycle. They're only valid for 10 years. And we recently got our list, and there's a whole list that we need to be looking at and figuring out how to space those. So we're talking about if they expire before that phase, that we'd be able to take a look at those. And then finally, HG&D. We would like to make sure we don't have that completely on the cycle because it's a different cycle. Every 3 years, we're taking a look at it. It lives a little differently. So what we would like to do for all of those is come up with their own visual, so they won't necessarily be part of the core subjects, but we're thinking we can create our own visual that will be unique to these programs. So that's really just information on what we'd like to be adjusting. So, do you have any questions regarding those changes?
I don't really have any questions, but I can see how something like that would have to be kind of fluid, as you're going through it. Maybe that doesn't work for this particular subject or whatever. So it totally makes sense, and I appreciate the, bringing it forward to share. Does anyone have any other questions?
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, we have reached the end of our agenda. So I will go ahead and adjourn, and it is 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody.